Hello guys, in this video we're going to create a simple Flask application connected to the Sqlite database to perform create, retrieve, update and delete actions on that database. So let's actually start writing some code. First, I want to create a simple Flask app instance, so I say from Flask import Flask, then create an app instance itself. I say app equals to Flask name like this, and create a driver, so I say if name equals main. In this case we want to say app.run. Let's enable debug mode while debug equals to true, and also the multi-threaded mode while threaded equals to true. And let's actually create the very first route for our application. So I say app.route, and this would be the root route. So I create a callback function called def_route and return a simple string here. So let's actually run the server by typing Python 3 app.py. Okay, and just go to the local host on the port 5000. We have our app alive. Now let's import Sqlite3 module, which is standard for the Python distribution. So I say import Sqlite3, and we would be performing 4 actions. So retrieve, create, update and delete, and the very root of our application would actually be responsible for retrieving the data. But before actually doing anything, first we need to create the Sqlite database itself, and I would be using this this root route to make that, and then I would just put the code away. And also I'll be using this Sqlite3 cheat sheet commands. This is the SQL language itself, so the syntax might be a bit different. It is a bit different in Sqlite3 compared to MySQL or PostgreSQL or other SQL dialects, so it's not really that easy to remember everything by heart. That's the reason why we'll be using this cheat sheet. So let's actually in every route we'll be creating a database instance and deleting this. Well, you could have used what is known as Flask global functionality, which is called Flask G, but that is a bit overwhelming, and I want to keep things as simple as possible. So I would be simply creating a database instance, database connection each time we enter the particular route. So there would be a little bit of code applications, but still that would be much easier to understand what's actually going on in the code. So let's create our database by typing db equals Sqlite3 connect, and the database name, I'll call this database posts db. So this would be holding the post for some sort of a block. And if there is no post database in the current working directory, in that case that database would actually be created. So if you just update the page and go back, I see that post db file has been created, and this is our database. And the second thing to consider, we actually need to create a table to store our posts, and that should have been done only once. So here is the Sqlite syntax for creating a table. I'll just go into this briefly in a moment, but before that we actually need to create what is known as cursor. So I say cursor equals db.cursor, and the cursor is an element that is needed to execute the SQL commands themselves. Someone used to call that SQL, but I personally like to call that SQL. So let's update to make sure that there is no errors. So now we can simply say cursor dot execute, and now we paste our SQL code, SQL query to create a table. So here we creating a table called posts. So all the uppercase are actually Sqlite or SQL in general related keywords, and all the lowercase are the names of the elements that we're creating. So we're creating the posts table with ID. The very first column is ID, and this is a type of integer. It's the primary key, and it's auto incremented. So each time we would update, every time would be appending a new entry to the database, the ID would be incremented automatically. So next, then we have the title of our blog post and the post itself. So both are the type of text. So let's actually save this and update our route one more time. And if we just do this one more time, we get an error that table already exists, and that's because table actually already exists. So we don't really need this piece of code anymore, and I can actually even delete this. So what we would actually need to do now is to insert a couple of elements to our table. So here is the SQL query for doing that. Okay, so I say cursor dot execute, and I paste this query. So we want to insert into, and then the name of the table we're inserting data to. So in our case, this would be the post, and we want to insert not all the elements, but only the title and the post, and with the corresponding values. And let's just keep these guys by default. So just to populate database with some sort of a data. Okay, and also we need to say cursor dot commit. In this case, we would actually populate the database. So if now I just update the database, okay, SQLite cursor. Oh, no, I'm sorry, not cursor.commit, of course, but database.commit. So I'm sorry for that, guys. Okay, and now let's update this several times. And for now, we just can command this lines out. And now let's cursor execute. Now let's actually implement the very main functionality for the root route, which would be retrieving the data from the database. So here I say select all from posts, and also I need some sort of a data variable equals cursor dot fetch all. And now we would actually return this this variable to see what's the data is available in our database. So, but first we need to stringify this. So, because by default this would be a list, and Flask doesn't allow you to return the list. List is not a valid view response for the Flask route. So we need to stringify this data like this, and just update the page. We see the 3 elements that we have just created, and if we just uncomment this lines quickly and trying to update the page several times, that we see that each time we're appending a new kind of post here. So that's regarding the that's it regarding the retrieving data. And so now let's basically create another route that would allow us to create to populate our database, so creating new elements. So I say app route, and let's call this create like this, and also the function to call. So create return nothing for a while. And here we need to do basically absolutely the same. And I just want to say one more time that it's not really the best ever way doing things when you duplicate the code every time, but still it's the most straightforward and simple way. And also I forgot to at the very end of working with database, we need to see the beta close to actually close the connection to our database. So that's also important. And okay, so well, at this moment we would be able to create a new element when navigating into the create route. So let's quickly check that out as well. So now if I just update the root route, nothing happens, but if I just go to create and I just update this a couple of times and then just go back to the root, we have created a couple of guys here. So that's cool. And another thing we would like to have here probably is actually to provide some sort of variables to put in places of this title and post. So if I just use a string formatting here, and here we'll be using two variables called title and post, and where we're supposed to take these variables from, so we can specify requests or request arguments. So let's actually comment this out for a while, and let's print some debugging information here. So I say request dot args like this. Okay, so if we now would navigate to the create route one more time. Okay, request is not defined. Yeah, that's because we need to import it first. So I say from Flask import request. Okay, so now we have an empty immutable dictionary here. That's because we didn't specify any particular arguments. But say if here we say title equals to some title like this, and post is equals some post here like this. In this case, we see that we have both title and post defined as our request argument. So now the very last thing remains here is actually to get those values from our request object. So let's create a title variable which would be equals to requests args dot get, and here we use the title, and exactly the same for the post would be here, post like this. And let's quickly check that out again. Basically, so I say title and post to print the debugger information for just referenced before assignment. Oh, okay, of course, these are the strings. Yeah, these are the strings, of course. Just update this, and some title and some post here, exactly what we get. Okay, so at this moment we don't really need to print this debugging information anymore, and we can simply commit our title and post to the database. So let's add a couple of commentaries here. So I say get request args and insert data into database. Okay, and here would be create database. Oh no, I'll just simply connect to database, and here close database connection, save, and just quickly duplicate this so to make it more clear. Okay. And this would be get data from database like this. Okay, so let's actually try to test our stuff out. So I just don't really need to return, or we can actually return a JSON response showing what we've just created. Maybe just let's go a simple way like this. Let's say title plus post and post like this. So just to see what we are creating here. Some title post, some post here. Underscore is not necessarily needed, but still. Okay, and if we just go back to the localhost root route, we would have to see that we've created a new entry with the particular names that were specified as request articles. Okay guys, hold on a sec, I'll just be right back. Okay, and now we need to create another couple of routes for update and delete stuff. So let's actually create update route. So I say app dot route and update def update return. Let's return nothing for now, and let's just grab this code. So the only difference here would be, instead of insert data, let's say update data in database, and here I use this update update query. And okay, so we need to update the table that is named posts, and we want to set both the title and the post to some sort of a value here. And also we need to specify the particular element that we're supposed to update data for. So if you say here, we say that's this one would be the ID is equal to 4, equals to 4, equals to 5, and so on. So here we also want to specify the ID slash ID. So this is the variable that is handled. Let's better call this ID like this. That would be holding the ID of the particular element that was supposed to actually update here. So here we'll use our ID, and yeah, let me just quickly would also be using this request args get in title and post. So yeah. Title, post, and ID here. So just before executing that query, I just want to quickly bring that out to see if that looks like okay or not. So save, and okay, now let's try to update, and title equals let's make something here, type something, and post equals to something else. And also here we need to specify the ID itself. So I hold my breath and try to run this. Okay, no errors. So update post set title equals to this. This is where ID is equal to 2. So it seems like exactly the exact functionality we need to have here. So let's actually try to test this at the moment. So we're supposed to update the second element with this value. So just click update one more time, and then I just go back to the root route, and the second element has been updated successfully, as we can see over here. So this is just great. Okay, and yeah, now we don't really need this one anymore. Now we can actually return update ID. So, well, probably I could have formatted this in a little bit better way, like this. So let's say title post title post like this, and something similar here, but also say ID. So here we would like to see the ID, title, and post. Okay, so let's check this one more time. ID, title, post. Okay, great. Let's create something. Okay, create. Okay, and let's get back. Okay, so it's created correctly. Okay, and now let's actually implement the very last element, the very last feature that would delete the particular element in the database. So app route delete, and ID here as well. So tab delete, take an ID as an argument. So this ID is passed as the argument to this delete callback function here. Exactly the same as happens when we update instance with this update function here. So return deleted ID and So first, yeah, let's try to navigate to delete. Let's have the first element. Okay, and now we actually need to grab this code one last time, and we don't need to get any title or post anymore. So let's grab our query here. So where ID equals to our ID variable over in here. So well, this should work. So let's see the very first. So we have the very first element like this. So let's actually try to delete this and see if it is deleted or not. Okay, so we did delete the very first element. So let's delete the tense one. Okay, so sorry. So let's delete the tense element. Okay, so we just deleted the tense element here. Okay, guys, so this is it basically. So we've just implemented the create, retrieve, update, and delete functionality for the Sqlite database connected to a Flask application. So until next time, and take care.